Oh, welcome back. Now, the cost of a weekly shop will rise if Britain leaves the European Union. That's the latest warning from the Prime Minister this morning. He's backed up by a group of former bosses of some of Britain's biggest retailers who are saying that Brexit would have a devastating effect on the economy. I'm joined now, you may have heard me having a little chatter off camera with Harriet Harman, Labour's former acting leader, and a very good morning to you. You've just been out shopping with the Prime Minister this morning, haven't you? Did you buy each other anything?
Well, it was before the store opened. We were talking to the staff, but talking to them about what they're selling, and so much of what they sell comes from the EU, and there is a real worry that prices would go up if we left the EU, and that's a real issue for people who are on low incomes and for whom the food shopping is really a big part of their bill.
But, I mean, it's a prediction, isn't it? I mean, you
it
can't
is.
be sure, Tom. Isn't this just the latest in a long list of dire warnings from the Remain side?
It is a prediction, but what is not a prediction, what is a fact, is that the biggest imports we get of food into this country is from the EU. Well, obviously, that stands to reason. And if we were outside the free tariff zone and they put tariffs on, the prices would go up. I mean, it is a fact that actually we get so much of our food from the EU, and if we weren't able to have free trade with them and had to start negotiating new deals, then there is a real danger prices would go up. And at the same time, there's a worry about jobs, because being out of the EU, so many of our jobs are connected to the EU. So it is a fact that so much of our food is connected to the EU, and it's a fact that so many of our jobs are connected to the EU. And I'm saying, why take it's blindingly obvious, it's a risk.
But isn't it also a fact that there is protectionism within this so-called free trade zone in the form of the common agricultural policy, and that, it pushes up the price of some goods in the shops?
But it wouldn't change that. If we were outside, all that would happen is, the people buy Spanish strawberries before they buy the English strawberries come on the market, and actually those Spanish strawberries would end up probably costing more because we'd be outside the free trade zone. And the argument that immediately they would let us have the same free trade terms, I mean, it would take years to negotiate, and meanwhile people would be paying higher bills. I mean, the fact is that after so many decades, our economy and people's household budgets and their jobs is very integrated with the European Union. After all, it's 500 million people. They're our nearest neighbours, and it's decades we've been part of it. It's just a leap in the dark. And for people for whom the shopping bill doesn't matter, well, they can say, yeah, let's strike out on our own. But for people whose jobs and whose bills really depend on it, I think that's really, it's wrong to be urging that.
What do you make this argument from, and we're going to see more about it tomorrow, from the Leave side, that if Turkey joins the European Union, 76 million Turks will be eligible to come to the United Kingdom?
Well, the point is that Turkey is not going to be joining the EU. Nobody within the EU is proposing that they should be joining. It wants to, but nobody in the EU is proposing that Turkey should. And if there was a proposal, which there isn't, any of the 28 countries, including the UK, should veto it. So one of the things is a lot of people haven't made up their mind on how to vote when it comes to the referendum. And a lot of people are saying they want to know the facts. Well, I think it's just completely wrong for the Leave campaign to say, as a matter of fact, we wouldn't have a veto. We would, and they should withdraw that today. I mean, we've got to keep this debate at a reasonable level. I mean, I'm saying, yes, I think it would be a problem about food prices. Yes, there's some Treasury analysis underpinning that. People can think about that. But to say that actually we wouldn't have a veto on Turkey joining the EU is plain wrong, and they shouldn't descend to that sort of politics when it's people making an important decision.
But countries can be bullied out of deploying their veto. Who knows what kind of horse trading could take place in the event of an imminent accession to the EU by Turkey, in that the Germans could come along and say, right, you've got to do this because we're going to do X, Y and Z.
No, they're saying we wouldn't have a veto, and we do have a veto. So what they're saying is plain wrong, and they're trying to just get people worried to get them to vote in a way which is disreputable and divisive. And, there are really strong arguments about the economy, and we're happy to have those arguments about jobs and about prices. But just to whip up people on the basis of false assertions, I think it's really deplorable. Okay. And those people who regard themselves as reasonable mainstream politicians, but who are for Leave, they should really be thinking about this. Because, I mean, not everybody who's on the Leave side is an extremist, although some of them are, but they should really be saying, no, we're not going to go along this. That is a shameful advertising campaign.
Who are the extremists on the Leave side? Who are the extremists?
Well, I don't really want to say who is and who isn't, but, there are some mainstream people in the Leave campaign, and they should be saying, I mean, we've got a government minister today saying that. I mean, she really...
Penny Mordaunt, is she an extremist?
Well, no, but she's a government minister. She's a mainstream politician. For her to be saying something which is factually not true, she ought to come out today and say, yep, I got it wrong. Factually, I got it wrong. Britain would have a veto were there to be any suggestion that Turkey was to join the EU, which there isn't a suggestion, except from Turkey, but there's nobody within the EU saying that they should join.
There's so much to talk to you about both campaigns here, but I also wanted to talk to you, Harriet Harman, of course, about this issue. The polls telling us that of the not shores, women are overrepresented. A quarter of women don't seem to know or to be able to make up their minds at this point.
Well, twice as many women as men apparently have yet to make up their mind. And, that's why I think that we should be putting forward factual arguments. But I think there's also a very particular reason for women to be thinking about the importance of staying in the EU, because although many of them are, would be regarded as faceless bureaucrats and they're as male-dominated in Europe as they are everywhere else, actually, Europe has been a strong friend to women at work. Like, for example, part-time workers. There was a directive came from Europe to our government to say, you must let part-time workers have the same rights as full-time workers. I mean, no government likes a directive, but for women at work, that was a very woman-friendly directive. And there's a lot of guarantees for women in the Treaty of Rome, which was very much ahead of its time, saying you've got to pay women equally, you've got to treat them equally. And I don't think we're in a post-feminist political nirvana yet where we can afford to say we don't need that guarantee. Would that we were.
Is it worth dusting down there, taking the tarpaulins off the pink bus to get this message across, or is it hiding with the headstone somewhere?
We're not bringing out the pink bus, but thank you for the suggestion.
Harriet Harman, very good to see you. Thank you very much indeed.